Think about it. Think about it. Think about it.
And welcome back to High School Basketball Weekly. Tim Murray alongside of Rick Boole once again. And Rick, it's hard to believe. Here we are. It's tournament time here in Massachusetts high school basketball.
Yeah, it's a good time of year. We look forward to it every year. You know, we start High School Basketball Weekly just before the middle of December, get through the holidays, and then we talk about the early days, and then we talk about midway, and here we are at the end. So all the teams played their 18-game regular schedule and have played a couple games in the Western Mass gig if they got in, or if not, they still played the extra 2 games. And so we've got plenty to report about, but you know, it's also tournament time, so the action has started.
Absolutely, and the state tournament has gotten underway. But before we talk about the state tournament, we want to talk about the Western Mass tournament, as we had a lot of teams playing in the Western Mass class tournaments, Class D, B, C, and D. And we'll start out something a little bit unusual. Let's talk about, Rick, the Class B Western Mass tournament that on the boys' side, because that was a dandy of a tournament, and it featured the top 4 teams in that tournament. Monument Mountain seeded 1, Taconic, Pittsfield, Wacona. Those top 4, all very, very solid high school teams, and it ended up last Saturday night at the Pittsfield Boys Club in a packed crowd and a Monument Pittsfield matchup.
Yeah, well, when I saw the pairings, Tim, for that Class B, I'm kind of taking a look at it, and I'm saying it's either going to be Monument versus Taconic or PHS. It's going to be one of the 2. And, of course, it ended up being Pittsfield High School, and the Generals have been on a roll. They won 2 of the 3 games against Taconic this year, after Taconic had won the opener at the Boys Club. And we knew that going in, it was going to be a tough game for Monument Mountain, because Monument had won a 2-point game on a Khalil Carson putback and a buzzer beater earlier in the season. And this one didn't disappoint. And you and I got to watch that ball game, and it was a great, great ball game. Pittsfield won that game, handing Monument its first loss of the season by a score of 65-63. But it was a packed house where they actually had to close the doors because of a sellout at the Boys and Girls Club in Pittsfield.
Absolutely.
And it was a dandy that we could talk about for a minute, Tim. But you know, the leading scores for both teams you know, certainly came through. You know, for the boys, they had Patrick Brennan had 18 for Pittsfield. Mackay Shepherdson had 17. Malachi Perry 16, and Nunu Brown had 11. And for Monument Mountain, their 4 top scorers did the same thing. Manny Brown with 21, Khalil Carson had 17, Griffin McElroy 14, Sebastian Guit Ramirez had 11, and it was just a battle back and forth. Pittsfield had the upper hand for most of the game, as you saw, and what Monument had to do was try to claw their way back, and Randy got his kids to get back in that game. They just could not get over the hump, and just ran out of time at the end.
Yeah, so kudos to the Pittsfield Generals in a great game. Great atmosphere down at the Pittsfield Boys and Girls Club in Pittsfield, packed house, and great for Berkshire County basketball. These 2 outstanding teams playing, and congratulations to Pittsfield. They are the Western Mass Class B champions.
It makes you want to wonder a little bit, Tim, and the questions will be answered down the road, but with the Taconic Thunder now being put into the category of a technical school totally. You know, what's that going to do for the Pittsfield community, for the boys and girls down there? Are they going to continue to go there, take a trade, do the classroom like McCann Tech and do the college prep courses? Or are they going to go in favor of Pittsfield High School? I've been talking to a few folks that I know in the Pittsfield area, and they've already had a few kids that have been at Taconic and played for Bill Heafy, and now you know, playing for Coach Edgerton at Pittsfield. So it'll be interesting to see if they get that little swing with athletics, right. The athletes, whether they choose Taconic High or Pittsfield High. As far as Monument Mountain is concerned, I'll end it with this, Tim. Randy's got an incredible team this year, as you know. I see them making a huge run in D4 in the state. And remember, they only have Khalil Carlson as their senior.
That's right.
And that is one loaded program.
Right. They've got a lot coming back. And I agree with you, Rick. I think they're going to make a deep run in the Division IV state tournament, and we'll be talking about the state tournaments in just a minute. But continuing on with the Western Mass tournament, Rick, in the boys Class C, of course, we had 3 teams from Berkshire County in there, McCann Tech and Drury, most notably from this North County. Drury was ranked number 2, but McCann Tech, Rick, they were in the tournament and they got knocked off by Lennox, another Berkshire County team there.
Actually, Tim, they
beat Lennox.
They beat Lennox. It was the 2 teams that had lost early
That's
on
right.
in the
Right.
Western Mass Class D.
Right. Yeah, I stand corrected.
Lennox had lost, and of course McCann had lost to Drury up at Drury, and I said to Coach Bullitt after that game, I said, you hung right with Drury. If you can hang with Drury, then you certainly can beat Lennox at home, and they did, beating Lennox 60-48. Jake Howland had 26, and Walt Mazza had 11, and then of course Drury ended up playing Granby. And I want to talk about that Granby team for a minute, Tim. And I didn't do enough justice to the Granby team. And I told a few high school basketball fans in this area, I'm done predicting teams. And I'm done talking about different teams because these are only kids,
Right.
14 to 18 usually. And I was not impressed with the Granby team in the game in Cheshire that we did against Hoosick Valley. But you've got to take a step back and say, well, yeah, that's because Hoosick Valley is the number 1 ranked team, not just in Western Mass in the Class D,
Right.
but also in the state. And they just did not look good. And I told a few folks, I didn't care for the Granby team. I didn't think they looked good. But let me tell you something. They looked pretty darn good against the Drury Blue Devils, at least a lot better. And I think it's the first time this year I can say, Tim, that I either broadcasted a Drury game or saw a Drury basketball game where they didn't run out of gas, but the kids were really tired at the end.
Right.
Because let's face it, and we all know Coach Reset goes 6-7 deep. And those kids played really, really hard, and they scratched and clawed, and they just couldn't come up with one. And in that ball game, Drury led 16-11 after one and 22-18 at halftime. But Granby pulled ahead in the third quarter. They had a really good third quarter and led 33-30 going into the fourth. Kind of went back and forth a little bit. Drury just did not have, enough at the end. Miles Beauchamp and Jorge Bond led the way with 11. Connor Hinkle played, I think, his best ball game of the year, not because he scored, but because of the steals, his passes, his assists, his rebounds, and his
Right.
defense. He has played the same. You and I have been talking about Connor a lot lately,
Absolutely.
how hard that young man plays on that floor. And he had 10 first-half points for the Blue Devils and actually got them that lead with his hard play. And they just had a hard time, Drury, with their press. Javier Fernandez kind of blew right by them with his speed.
Right.
And what he would do is he would either drive and dish or drive and pass to the wing. He had 4 threes. He had 22 points, and he kept feeding Colin Murdoch in the corner, and he knocked down, I think, 3 consecutive threes. So they were really, really knocking down their open shots, and that was the difference in that ball game. I think Drury's a better team. But
Right.
that night, they just didn't have enough to pull it off with some real hot, sharp shooting in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I think Drury's a better team, no question about that. Just didn't have it that night, and they lost to Granby in the Class C Western Mass Tournament semifinals. But they're in the state tournament. We'll talk about that state tournament in just a minute. We'll swing back to Drury
Yeah.
and talk about that. On the Hoosick Valley side, but before we get to that, let's talk about Mount Greylock, which had a huge upset, Rick, in D4. They came in as the number 41 seed in the state tournament, and they knocked off the 24th seeded team.
Yeah, the Mounties won their 6th straight game, Tim, very quietly. Have been playing really good basketball lately. And they edged out the 24 seed Blue Hills Vocational Technical. They're from Canton, Mass. And so What does this remind you of, Tim? This reminds you of what we talk about in the show a lot. Coach Bob Thistle and his Mounties last year hitting the road and hanging in there for 3 or 4 ball games
Right.
and putting on, was it like 700 or 800 miles in a week and a half?
Right.
And so they've already had to travel to Canton, and in winning that ball game, 50-49, they're going to play at number 9 Georgetown, which is a North Shore team, and you're looking another 250, 60 miles, and you're looking at another
really.
5 hours of travel. And this happens for all the teams, but it's not so bad for Hoosick Valley and Drury, Tim, because they got the higher seed, and so they're going to be home for a little while.
Right.
But when you get a seed like Mount Greylock did at 41, and you have to hit the road, you've got to be mentally prepared and physically prepared to win on somebody else's floor, and they did it last year, and they're doing it already this year. So Noah Kane Smalls in that win over Blue Hills had 25 points, and Desmond Cobb had 16. And they have been the mainstay all year long. They're getting some contributions from some of their younger players and from senior Judge Martin, but Tommy Wendell in his first year is kind of exceeded a lot of expectations as Greylock sits at 12-9 right now, which is very respectable.
Right, no question about it. Well, Hoosick Valley, you alluded to them, Rick. They are number 1 ranked in the state in D5. They were number 1 seeded in the boys Class D Western Mass tournament, and they tied up in a thrilling contest in the championship game against Duggan Academy, who was the 3 seed. And Duggan Academy brought their A game to the Class D Western Mass Tournament Finals. That is for sure. And they had Hoosick Valley on the ropes in this one, but Hoosick Valley with a furious second half comeback.
There's a nice steal by Frank Field to start things off. This is all second half action now
Right.
with Hoosick trailing. Troy Moynihan
And
knocking
there's
out a
that
big
Trevor,
three.
there's the 8th grader. What a great second half. He had a great ball game all around, Rick.
What a beautiful pass there to Bradley from Tatro.
Yeah, Caden Tacho had a nice game here.
Hey, there's an NBA 3. And we've seen, how many times have we seen that in the last 3 or 4 years? And there's another one up in it. It's a 2-pointer by McGovern. And it's Moynihan knocking off a big 3. And then coming up is something very, very pretty. Look at the hustle by Bradley. Gets the ball to McGovern. Joey goes right to the hoop, uses that left hand off the glass, or that right hand off the glass. What incredible. Another NBA 3 gets them back in it. And off a miss. Look at Frank Field. Look at the position. Tapping it back to himself for an easy putback as the Hurricanes.
Yeah, it was ferocious, Rick. They were down at halftime, and whatever was said at halftime, they came out firing on all cylinders and some adjustments. Hoosick Valley went from a man-to-man defense and started to play zone, and that confused Duggan a little bit. And of course, Hoosick got some breaks and they made some big shots.
Yeah, and I saw Coach Robinson the day after, and I asked him after I congratulated him, were they better than you thought? And he says, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. He gave him respect to start with, but they were even better than that. And it's tough when you play the teams from Springfield or Pioneer Valley when you haven't seen them that much or you don't see too much film. But he said they came in out in a trap. It confused his kids. There were some turnovers, and they're very aggressive and they're quick. And I'm glad the better team won. And the Hurricanes, they just fight and claw. And they've had some pretty good second halves this year.
Yeah, they have. And of course, they had some balanced scoring. Four people with Frank Field doing his usual thing, leading the way with 22. McGovern had 19. The 8th grader Moynihan, he was big in this one. He had 15 points. And Quinell Bradley, who suffered an ankle injury, Rick, in the first half, had to go to the locker room, but shook it off and came back and had a great second half.
That's incredible. And those four young men, and if you want to throw in Aiden Wicks, who can score for you, certainly, and averaged close to double figures most of the season. He didn't score double figures in that ball game, but Coach Robinson, we've said this over and over again, how he's got 4 kids averaging double figures, and they're very, very consistent. And in that Drury Hoosick game we mentioned last week, when you shut down Frank Field and Joey McGovern, at least scoring-wise, and you still lose the ball game by 13 points, that really is a tribute to the bench and the other players Coach Robinson has.
Right. Well, let's talk a little bit about, Rick, the state tournament, MIA state tournament. Now, of course, Drury, they ended up with the number 6 seed at 13-7. You see that's the MIA D5 seeding, and you see it. Drury got the 6th seed, and I like their bracket. They're actually playing tomorrow night in our game of the week, one of their games of the week at Drury. It's going to be a great one up there, a doubleheader action for Drury as they're at home against Salem Academy, the number 27 seed. So the boys will be playing at 7 o'clock, preceded by the girls' game. So that's going to be a great evening of basketball action on Friday night. And there's Drury, Rick, the number 15 seed. They're going to play Neighborhood House Charter at number 19. And I like Drury in both these ball games. But you're going to be up there covering it for Northern Berkshire Community Television. That's going to be a great evening of high school basketball.
Yeah, because of the success of the last few years, the programs of both the Hoosick Valley boys and girls, there have been some doubleheaders up there. And I don't think Drury has had that opportunity, and they finally got the opportunity. So I thought we'd jump all over it. And because you were able to cover the Western Mass finals on Saturday, that I could get up there with John Franzoni. And we will be there to cover the Drury girls at 5 and the Drury boys at 7 on Friday. If you're hanging around, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be on tape delay, not live. So you try to get up to the Bucky Bullet Gym and see some great basketball. The neighborhood charter school from Dorchester, don't know very much about. We're going to find out. A number 19 seed, they are undefeated at 19-0. This will be the second time in a week and a half that Coach Downey's young Blue Devils will face an undefeated team. They lost in a pretty darn good ball game down at Renaissance a couple of weeks ago, or a week and a half ago. And we'll see what they have here. It's a charter school, so they play in a charter school league, and you don't know what it's about. But the point system basically helps you out with. It's one good thing about the pairings, Tim, is the point system on strength of schedule and point differential in wins and losses of 10 points or better. So, and then the boys are playing Salem Academy. They come in 12-9. Again, don't know very much about them. They were a 50-47 winner over the College Charter School of Lowell, and so time will tell. But I kind of agree with you. I think Drury will hold home court here and move on.
I agree. I think Drury's strength of schedule, Coach Reset will have this Drury team prepared and ready to go, as he always does. And as we talked off air beforehand, I love this. I like this place where Drury is. I like their particular bracket. I think they have a shot to go a long way in the state tournament with the bracket that they're playing, especially since a lot of teams that they know are in that bracket. The number 3 seed Pioneer Valley Regional, Drury's played them and beat them. So they know them.
Right, and you don't want to go too far ahead. No, we can do that, but the kids and the coaches can't.
No.
They got to take it one game at a time. And we have the opportunity to go look ahead a little bit more. But you got to take care of business at home first. And if they do, and if they play well, yeah, you're right. There is a potential down the road for them to meet Pioneer Valley again at some point. They're in that bracket. They are in the same league. They're in Hampshire South. Drury was able to win both those ball games this year in pretty good ball games, close ball games. And if you can win there once, you can do it again. Yep. Is it hard to beat a team 3 times in a season? We talk about that all the time. Yeah, it certainly is. But they have the capability of doing it. But again, we'll just take it one game at a time.
Right. And Hoosick Valley and the boys said the number 1 seed. They're actually playing tonight. They host Keefe Tech, the number 32 seed, who beat Mount Everett in a preliminary round game, 71-59. So it's going to be Keefe Tech facing off against Hoosick Valley, the 32 seed against the 1 seed up at Hoosick Valley tonight. That game is 7 o'clock. So that's pretty much what we've got on the boys' side, Rick. Switching over to the girls' side, let's talk a little bit about the Drury Blue Devils, the Lady Blue Devils. They finished the season strong against Greenfield, and their next game is, as you alluded to, that game on Friday night against Neighborhood House Charter.
Yeah, the Drury girls hit the road and had to play Renaissance right away. Again, a 19-0 team that Coach Downey didn't know a lot about, but thought he could compete with. It was a closer game than the score indicated. It was a 13-point win for Renaissance. But if you take a look at the point differential all year with Renaissance, it's been 25, 30 points almost every ball game. So Drury hung right in there tough with them. So they got to play Greenfield in the 20th ball game, and they played at Greenfield and came away with a 40-26 win. In that ball game, Jacinta Felix had 12 and Brooke Bishop had 11. And what I like about that is it wasn't one of their two top scorers scoring in double figures that night. It was both. And I think that is exactly what Coach Downey would love to have if the situation was right. He's got some younger players, Nora Wood, the Haydens, Eva Moser. You go on and on and on with their youth, and they're going to have a great program. But with your two veterans, when they score and you get some contributions from a 10th grader and a couple 9th graders, that's pretty darn good. And so we'll see how they do as they host Neighborhood Charter School.
And just one thing I want to add, Rick, if I might. I actually saw a clip of this. I want to call out Coach Downey and the Blue Devils for a tremendous act of sportsmanship that was displayed in that game.
Right.
Amber Bergeron, the outstanding senior guard for Greenfield, on the cusp of 1,000 points. She actually was injured in the game against Hoosick Valley High School a week or so earlier. And she needed a point or two to get the 1,000 points. The game was decided. There was only seconds left in the game, and Drury fouled Amber Bergeron more or less intentionally to give her an opportunity to go to the line and score 1,000 points. So I want to tip hat to Coach Downey and the Blue Devils for that act of sportsmanship.
Yeah, and I don't know the whole story. I haven't talked to Coach Downey in a week or so, but in the article, if I read it correctly, Tim, the girls actually approached him. So kudos to the girls and to Coach Downey for that act of sportsmanship. It's like apples and oranges, but it's almost like a runner assisting another runner, carrying them over the finish line.
Exactly.
And that will pay dividends in a program where Drury looks at themselves as family. Right. So congratulations to them. Yeah.
Absolutely. We just talked about it. So their next game, they've got a home game against Neighborhood House. That's at 5 o'clock on a Friday evening. So once again, you want to make sure if you're in the area and you've got something to do, get up to Drury High School. You got two good tournament games that you can watch. The girls at 5 o'clock and then the boys right at 7 o'clock. Hoosick Valley, Rick, in the Class D Western Mass tournament, they were the #1 seed throughout the tournament. They held seed and they came away with their third consecutive Class D Western Mass title.
Yeah, as you remember, Tim, they broke up Berkshire County 3 years ago, and this is the third consecutive Class D final for the Lady Canes. Here's Abby Scalaba with a 3. Ashley Zashur, I'm getting a nice disc going in with a left hand. Emma Meswar with a 3-pointer. And then Hannah Shea's going to take a shot, and boy, they were red hot, Tim, and especially early in that ball game, weren't they?
Yeah, they hit their first 4 3-pointers that they took right out of the gate.
There's Emma with another little floater from the lane. And then here comes Meswar to Garabedian, and Taylor puts it off the glass, and then Ann Walsh as she got fouled. Great ball movement. Here's Garabedian to Meswar. She puts it off the glass, and then finally Haley McNeese gets involved, and she assists a beautiful one to Garabedian for a lay-in. So that's unselfish, Coach Frederick type Hoosick Valley girls basketball at its best.
Right, and with a young Pioneer team, they're going to be heard from in the future. Coach Harrington, Kevin Harrington's got a nice young squad there, so good things on the horizon for Pioneer. But the #1 seeded Hurricanes were just a little bit too much for them in that one, and they took home the title. So that leaves tonight. They are playing at Hoosick Valley in the first game of a doubleheader, and they've got the number 33 seeded Norfolk County Aggie Agricultural Charter School. So they will be taking them on at 5 o'clock, followed by the boys at 7 o'clock. So again, that's tonight. So if you've got time and like the game at Drury tomorrow night on Friday, you want to get up there to see some good tournament action, and we'll be following all the action as it goes along, Rick.
Tim, I just want to add one quick thing. I know
Yeah.
you traveled down to Westfield High School to do that game over the weekend, but I just want to talk about the leading scorers for that game for the Hurricanes. And Emma Meswar led with 22.
Right.
And we can't say enough good things about Emma this year. What an incredible year she's had. She didn't start slow. She started with a lot of improvement, but boy, she's gotten very, very comfortable, and she's been in double figures for several games in a row. Taylor Garabedian had 10, the senior, with another good game. Ashlyn LaSure did her thing. She had 9. Hannah Shea had 8. But again, that's what makes that team so good, is you don't need Taylor Garabedian and Ashlyn LaSure to lead you every night. They're going to get balanced scoring elsewhere because they share the basketball. And their three-point shooters are tremendous. And they, as well as the boys, they're going to do a nice run in D5.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Emma's emergence offensively, she plays with such energy and such aggression. She plays bigger than she is. She's a very good rebounder and good defensive player. But boy, when she's scoring the basketball, she is a tough matchup for any girls team in high school action.
So Tim, I want to do a couple of shout outs for some of the other girls teams that participated in the Western Mass tournament. We talked about Hoosick Valley knocking off Pioneer Valley, but in Class C, number 1 seed Lennox Millionaires fell to number 3 Renaissance, and they stayed undefeated. So they're going into the girls Division 5 undefeated. So we'll see how far they can go. And in Class B, South Hadley, a team that we saw play at Hoosick Valley earlier this year, and suffered a close loss, but came back and actually won their league, knocked off Pittsfield 48-40. And if you knock off Pittsfield, I don't care where you play, that's a pretty darn good ball club. Their program is now back, that's for sure.
Right. And you look at it, Rick, let's talk a little bit about this girls Western Mass tournament in Division 5. It's very, very interesting, looking at the top 4 teams in the class.
So what we have in front of us right now, Tim, is the Western Mass teams I just told you. As you can see, Lennox losing to Renaissance 56-45, Hoosick Valley over Pioneer Valley 57-35, and South Hadley's win over Pittsfield at 48-40. Then if we could switch over, if we can, to the MIAA girls.
Right,
and there we are right there. Thank you.
Look at that. The first 3 of the top 4 teams and 6 of the top 10 rated teams in Division 5 are from Western Massachusetts.
Yeah, these are just Western Mass teams with the Berkshire County teams highlighted bold black.
Right.
So.
And then you look right behind Pioneer Valley. Franklin Tech, solid team, has a great year. The Drury Blue Devils, who are a solid team themselves, have played a very difficult schedule in Berkshire County this year. They're at 14, followed by Greenfield and Mahar Lee. So you look at the strength there in Western Mass in D5.
Yeah, girls rule Western Mass in the MIA. There's some great ball clubs there. And good to see Liz Kay and Wacona, in 4. And Pittsfield High will be I believe the lone representative for Division 3.
And while we have a moment, this was some discussion. Again, the Pioneer Valley Interscholastic Athletic Conference has been running the Western Mass tournament. We've been following it over the past 3 years, Rick. I think what has come out of this is people are starting to suggest that perhaps there ought to only be 3 divisions, that C and D in Western Mass should be combined into one division, into a Division C, so that the teams are a little bit more evenly matched. You take the top 8 teams in C and D and make them into one division.
Yeah, so I can understand that, Tim. And if you basketball fans think about it a little bit, it depends on your school. If your school doesn't fit that, then you want to keep it the way it is. But the old way that we used to have it in Western Mass would be the way you're referring to, where instead of having 16 teams, you take your top 8 and then one plays 8, 2, 7, 3, 6, 4, 5, and go on from there.
And there's also been some suggestion that they would play the semifinal, at least the semifinals and the finals at one site, like they used to at the Cave.
Yeah, that would be great.
You know,
That would be wonderful.
So you get a great atmosphere. It's a good location that people can follow. So we're going to watch that. We've been talking with Jury and Hoosick Athletic Director Jeff Polari about that. He has some ideas along that line, and
Great.
he said things are going to continue to evolve, at least in Western Massachusetts.
But at least they still have a little Western Mass gig, and congratulations to the Hoosick Valley boys and girls for winning Boys and Girls Class D, and good luck to all our local teams down the road as we hit the MIAA tournament that is now underway.
It is, and we'll be following it all, and we'll be back next week on High School Basketball Weekly to report on it.
So long,
Good night,
everybody.
everybody.